Hello everyone, welcome to Wow Eyes. From today onwards, we are starting a new initiative, a daily current affairs module. The contents PDF will be available on our Telegram channel, so please don't forget to subscribe to the same. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon for any further updates. So, without delaying, let's start. Our first news for the day is Mission Sagar. So, what is Mission Sagar? First of all, we shall see that. Our Prime Minister Narendra Modi coined the term Sagar during his Mauritius visit in 2015 with a focus on blue economy. It focuses on Indian Ocean region for ensuring peace, stability and prosperity of India in the region. Principles of Indian Ocean Rim Association IORA thus guide the Sagar. Now the goal of the Sagar is to seek a climate of trust and transparency and respect for international maritime rules and norms by all countries and sensitivity to each other's interests. Now, what is the context of this news? Under Mission Sagar, ships have been departed for Maldives, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, and Comoros to provide food items, COVID related medicines, including hydrochloroquine tablets, and medical assistance teams. INS Kesari, Indian Naval Ship Kesari, would reach port of Malé in Maldives. The deployment is in line with PM's vision of security and growth for all, which is the Sagar. India's role as the first responder in the region and strengthen the relations between these countries to battle the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is our first news. Now our next topic is the salt forest tortoise. So what is the context? The Wildlife Institute of India has found that over 90% of the habitat of Sal forest tortoise falls outside the current protected areas network. Now, what is Sal forest? We shall see that first. Sal forest is a forest dominated by single species of trees, which is the Sal. Okay, these are tropical moist deciduous forests. Tropical moist deciduous forests, and they are mainly distributed in the South and Southeast Asia, occurring along the base of tropical Himalayas from Assam to Punjab, in the eastern districts of central India, and on the western Bengal hills. So, the distribution of Sal forest tortoise is also similar. It is widely distributed over eastern and northern India and Southeast Asia. Okay. Also, it is known as elongated tortoise, Indotestudo elongata. It is one of the 4 land tortoises found in India. It is classified as critically endangered. This you should remember, critically endangered, and it is also protected under Schedule 4 of Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Schedule 4 species are protected, but the penalties are much lower. Also, it is estimated by IUCN that the population of the species may have fallen by about 80% in the last 3 generations, that is 90 years. Okay, so this news is important. Now, moving forward to our next news, which is the Central Panel recommends ban in use of TB drugs in crops. Now, presently, streptocycline drug is allowed in 8 crops. As no alternatives are available now to these drugs, it has recommended that the phase out must only be completed by 2022. Up till then, we can use this drug. The Central Insecticides Board and Registration Committee has recommended that TB drugs such as streptomycin and tetracycline should be completely banned in crops. Okay. Now our next news, which is the 200th birth anniversary of Florence Nightingale. As we all know, Florence Nightingale is the founder of modern nursing. She is also called the lady with the lamp. She had considerable mathematical skills and was the first healthcare professional to use data to show that infection control improves health outcome. See why this news is important. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we see that emphasis has been laid on hand washing, sanitization, and Florence Nightingale also advocated about these things. She said that where sanitization is there, the death rate is quite very low. That's why this news is important. She emphasized on the practice of hand washing. See, she took posting in Turkey to contribute in the Crimean War, which was fought during 1854 and 1856. Diseases such as cholera, typhoid were widely prevalent when she arrived in Turkey. Okay, she collected data and showed that an improvement of sanitary methods would reduce the number of deaths, as I have already told you. She used her data to create graphics. This is one of such graphs. This graph is called the polar area diagram. Okay, so these blue wedges, as you can see, is the death rate in different months and different areas, January, February. Okay, that's why this news is important. Now we shall move forward to our next news, which is indigenous antibody test, COVID Kavach ELISA. Okay, what's the context? The National Institute of Virology, Pune, of ICMR, that is the Indian Council of Medical Research, has developed and validated the indigenous COVID-19 antibody detection IgG ELISA, okay, which is also called COVID Kavach ELISA. Now, what is ELISA? ELISA is enzyme linked immunosorbent assay. It is a place-based assay technique designed for detecting and quantifying substances such as peptides, proteins, antibodies, and hormones. Okay. So how ELISA works? See, it detects antibodies. How antibodies are developed? When you catch an infection or an allergen, antibodies are developed to counter that infection. So what ELISA does is it tests your body for the antibodies. If antibodies are present, that means that you have definitely caught infection previously. So if there are antibodies for COVID-19 in your body, that means that you were suffering from COVID in the past. That's why this test is very important. So what are antibodies? Antibodies are Y-shaped proteins produced mainly by the plasma cells. This is important. These bodies are produced by the plasma cells that are used by the immune systems to neutralize pathogens such as virus and bacteria, as I have already told you. There are 5 immunoglobulin classes, isotypes of antibody molecules such as IgG, IgM, IgA, IgE, and IgD. Remember that this is IgG ELISA test variant. Okay. Now, what are the applications? As I have already told you, it can determine antibody concentrations in your body. It can be used in food industry to test for food allergens. Okay. It can be applied in disease outbreaks such as HIV, bird flu, COVID. Okay. Now, what is the importance of ELISA test? It can test 90 samples together in a single run of 2.5 hours. Thus, it is very efficient and fast. In a country like India, where we have 130 crore people, this test can be very effective. It is easily possible even at a district level, as the ELISA test kit has an inactivated virus. Okay. Minimum biosafety and biosecurity requirements as compared to real-time PCR test. So what is the RT-PCR test? We shall see. RT-PCR test is the real-time, please write it somewhere if you can find some space, real-time reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction test. So what this does, it is a qualitative detection of nucleic acid from SARS-CoV virus. Nucleic acid, it detects nucleic acid. So first of all, what we do is that we convert RNA, because COVID is the virus is RNA, has RNA. We convert this RNA into DNA. Now you might be wondering why we should convert this into DNA. This is because only DNA can be amplified. What is amplifying? It is simply copying, so that we can get various strands of the same thing. So we will amplify this thing by billions. Okay, we will make billions of copies of this DNA. So that's why RNA must be converted into DNA so that it can be amplified. This RNA can be converted into DNA through reverse transcription. That's why this is called reverse transcription PCR test. Reverse transcription. Sorry. And how is this amplified? It is amplified through polymerase enzyme. That's why it is polymerase chain reaction. Okay. So how does it differ from ELISA? See, ELISA identifies antibodies. So you might have already developed this infection previously. So that antibodies take some time. It may be 15 days, 16 days, 2 or 3 weeks. So after 2 or 3 weeks, you will be identified as positive. However, if you do this ELISA test in the very beginning of your infection, you might be shown negative. This is where RT-PCR nucleic acid test comes into force. When you catch an infection, this test is quite very effective. But after some time, we see that ELISA is more effective. Now, what are the limitations of ELISA? See, as I have already told you, as it detects antibodies, it can only help in knowing if a person has been previously infected, as it takes 1 to 3 weeks for the antibodies to develop. I have already told you this. And what are the advantages over the PCR test? The RT-PCR will only be able to detect current infection, as I have already shown you. If the test has been done after a few weeks of the infection, the test result will be negative. Now we will move forward to our next news, which is the relaxation in labor laws. So why is this news important? See, our economy is very down and has become very slow, as we all know, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So many states, what they have done is they have relaxed various labor laws like MP, UP. So this relaxation, what can it do? What potential benefits it can bring, and what potential disadvantages it can bring? Now, what's the context? Many states, like I've told you, UP, MP, etc., Haryana, Gujarat, have made various changes to their labor laws to provide relief to the employers in the form of blanket exemption from labor laws. So, various provisions regarding the shift hours, minimum wages are altered or completely abolished. UP has completely abolished the minimum wages requirement. So they think that it will give a boost to the economy to create new investment opportunities and fastening the business processes. Now, what are the issues with this? It might result in exploitation of laborers. When there is no regulation, laborers will definitely be exploited. This is a fact. It may lead to a sharp drop in wages, because when there are no regulations, there are no minimum wages, people can fire you and rehire you so that you will be willing to work at low wages. It may also lead to greater informalization of the market. We know that 90% of our market is informal. This will also aid in more informalization of the market. Will it boost employment? Theoretically, yes. Fewer labor regulations can generate more employment. But our experience has shown that relaxing labor protection laws have failed to attract any investment and increase employment. This move and the resulting fall in wages will further depress the overall demand. When you will have no money, the laborers will have no money, they won't be able to spend anything, and thus this will further depress the overall demand in the economy, which is our problem. Our consumption expenditure is very low. Thus further reduction in demand will hurt the economy. What's the way forward? Instead of increasing shift duration from 8 to 12 hours, provisions for 2 shifts of 8 hours each. See, one person will work for 12 hours or 2 persons for 8 hours each will work. So this will generate more employment. Okay. So 2 shifts of 8 hours each could be provided. Now, most governments across the world, what they have done, that they have partnered with the industry and allocated some percentage of their GDP towards sharing the wage burden. Okay. Now, beyond labor regulations, as we all know, firms face a lot of other hurdles, such as the shortage of skilled labor, weak enforcement of contracts, etc. These challenges should be addressed first, and then you should tweak any labor regulation. Now, moving forward to our next news, this is an op-ed, 7 trends in the geopolitics of the world. So, what are these 7 trends in the geopolitics? First is the rise of Asia. We all know the centrality of Asia now. The 2008 global financial crisis showed the resilience of the Asian economies. Even today, the economic forecasts indicate that out of the G20 countries, only China and India are likely to register any economic growth during 2020. We have also been very prompt in our action regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. I can give you an example of India, Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, etc. These countries have been very prompt in their action regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. It is thus estimated that the Asian economies will also recover faster. That's why the first trend is the rise of Asia. Now the second is the decline of the US. Okay. After a century of being at the forefront, the US is showing signs of retreating. It played a decisive role in shaping the world. We all know that the US was once a leader in the world. From the world wars to the leadership of the Western world during the Cold War, molding global responses to threats posed by terrorism or proliferation or climate change. But recent challenges in the Afghanistan and Iraq have sapped the domestic will and resources of the US. The US is slowly withdrawing from the Afghanistan and it has already withdrawn from the Iraq. This shows that US is not now able to take the leadership role of the world. Moreover, even as countries were losing trust in the US's leadership, its mishandling at the home of the pandemic indicates that countries are also losing trust in the US's competence. Okay. Now, Trump's America First policy is a symbol of America's retreat. US's efforts at cornering supplies of essential medicines may also mean America alone. The country which has place for everyone is slowly closing itself down. So, this is the decline of the US. Now, the third trend is the weakening unity of the EU. EU faces various internal challenges such as its expansion of membership to include East European states. Okay. The second is the financial crisis among the Eurozone members. We have seen that there is a north-south divide in the Eurozone. The PIGS countries which were forced to apply austerity measures. PIGS countries stand for Portugal, Italy, Greece and Spain. Okay. Brexit negotiations. This is also a challenge. Now the rising populism has also given greater voice to Eurosceptics and permitted some EU members to espouse the virtues of illiberal democracy. Okay, they want to get separated from the EU. As we all know, Britain is exiting. There's also different threat perceptions. Okay, old and new Europe have different threat perception, and which makes it very difficult to react on an agreement on political matters such as relations with China and Russia. It also lacked solidarity when Italy is fighting with the pandemic. Italy has also closed its market for exporting various medical equipments. Okay, border free movements has been a victim of COVID crisis, as we all have seen. Now what the EU needs to do is that it will need to think about the limits of the underlying theme of shared sovereignty. We all know that EU means shared sovereignty. In these challenging times, it will need to think about this concept. What are the limits of its shared sovereignty, which the EU espouses? Now, the next trend is the rise of China. We all know that China is rising. Okay, China's growing economic role has been visible since it joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. It has it is ready to assume global responsibilities through the more assertive posture taken under Xi Jinping, like the Belt and Road Initiative, which involves huge investments as a kind of preemptive move against any US attempt at containment. We all know that US and China are entangled in a trade war. As we had discussed earlier, the US China relations moved from cooperation to competition and finally to confrontation, as it can be seen through its trade war. Now, the next trend is failure of multinational institutions. We all know what is happening with the WHO now. America has discredited this institution and various other institutions like UNESCO, Human Rights Commission, UNHCR, as we all know. Okay, so WHO has already become the victim of politics, as we have seen. UNSC, G7, G20 are paralyzed when the world faces the worst recession since 1929. This trend is not new, as I have shown you. US had left UNESCO, UNHCR. These institutions have already and always been subjected to big power politics. For instance, during the Cold War, the US Soviet rivalry broke the UNSC on many sensitive issues, and now with major power rivalry returning, finds itself paralyzed again. Okay. Also, there are budget constraints, which is forcing these institutions to rely on voluntary contributions, largely from Western countries. Okay. What is needed is collective global leadership, which is needed for much required reforms in these global institutions. The next trend is the oil prices. Oil prices are falling. We all know this. Growing interest in renewable and green technologies. This is one reason. And the second is US is emerging as a major energy producer. A looming economic recession and depressed oil prices will exacerbate the internal tensions in West Asian countries, which are solely dependent on oil revenues. The last trend is the stability of West Asia, or the instability of West Asia, as we can see. Fragile regime structures can create political instability in the world. Okay, now we'll move on to our next op-ed, which is taking India's agri marketing and PDS system on a more efficient path. So this says that despite initial disruptions in supply lines, India has somehow managed to feed its large population. Okay, we all know that supply lines have snapped due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite this, we are all able to get our food. Initially, the prices of perishables collapsed in some parts of the country, which increased the farmers' plight. Okay, but at the consumer's end, even the supply of perishables were quickly restored, as we all have seen. Now, what are the reforms that are needed in the agri marketing and PDS? So, first of all, it should help farmers in better price realization. Okay, farmers get very low for what they produce, and we must also keep the inflation low at the same time. The consumers should be able to afford it, and the farmers should be able to get what they deserve. Okay, now it is time to open channels for direct buying from farmers and farmer producer organization. Contract farming, we can say, they should be exempted from any market fee and other cesses, and they will not be using the services of the APMC, Agriculture Processing Marketing Committees. Okay, E-NAM can flourish if grading and dispute settlement mechanisms are put in place. Private mandis also need to be promoted. On the PDS front, as we all know, you can purchase ration in your state ration shops. Alternatives to these can be one nation, one ration card. Write it down, it is one of the important schemes which is implemented in 20 states right now. And also, we can move towards cash transfers. you transfer cash in the bank accounts and the poor will be able to purchase their rations. Now moving on to our next topic, which is the Pran Vayu program. It is important from prelims perspective. It is launched by the Bangalore City Corporation to create awareness about the respiratory health and aims to help people in increasing oxygen level by themselves. We all know that the COVID disease is causing various respiratory problems. Now this scheme aims to rectify these respiratory problems. Okay, now the next topic is Suraksha Store Initiative. It is launched by Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution to ensure health and safety of the citizens during lockdown. Department of Consumer Affairs is working with a tech startup, SafeJob and Seekify to prevent the spread of COVID-19 at Kirana store level by generating awareness. Okay, they'll generate awareness. They will tell you about the protocols to be followed, also social distancing norms. Okay, so information and awareness regarding these things will be spread at the Kirana shops. Now moving on to our last topic, the Dhruv. Dhruv is UV based sanitizers. It is produced by DRDO. Okay, Research Center Imarat RCI Hyderabad of DRDO has developed Defense Research Ultraviolet Sanitizer Dhruvs. Okay, so what they have done is they have developed a ultraviolet cabinet to sanitize mobile phones, laptops, wallets, etc. What happens is that you keep your wallets, phones, etc. in this cabinet, and 360-degree UV exposure will sanitize your equipment. Okay, the technology is called ultraviolet germicidal irradiation, UVGI. Okay, the short wavelength UV between 200 nanometer and 300 nanometer are generally the germicidal UV. So this is important. They are highly absorbed by the nucleic acid, as we have seen in the PCR test. When absorbed, the nucleic acid lose their capability of replication and disintegrate shortly, leading to the death of the organism. So this is how it works. So we have finished our daily current affairs module for today. Now for the contents PDF, as I have already told you, please join our Telegram channel. Its link I will be posting in the description box below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. At the end of the month, we will be publishing a monthly magazine. So if you will follow daily, you will be able to remember more and also revise the monthly magazine very quickly. So please follow us every day. Thank you.